Oh, thank you, SJ. That was beautiful. Hello. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Fayetteville. My name is Reverend Renee, and I am grateful and lucky to be your minister and music director. Unitarian Universalism is a tradition open to all people, whether you are religious or non-religious. We have 7 core values at the center of our UU beliefs: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, generosity, and at the center of all of it is love. That's the most important, and it's at the center of all things that UUs do. We respect our connections to each other, to all of life, and to the precious universe of which we are a part. We welcome you, whoever you are at this moment, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey. For those of you joining us online, welcome. We love our Facebook congregants. Visitors, we are happy to see you. Welcome home. We would like to encourage you to hang out after the service for coffee and conversation. And members, I would ask that you greet our newcomers and make them feel welcome as we grow our circle wider. For those of you visiting us, I'm sure the ushers told you this, but you are welcome to fill out a visitor information card so that you can get on the email list that Fawn lovingly curates and sends out once a week. You can always get off the email list, and we never sell your information. Yes, yes, yes. We have in the seat backs in front of you, Diane's holding up one of the white cards. You can fill one of those out, and it can happen. If you are new, and if you are not new, please check out our website at uufayetteville.org for more information about us. Later in our service, we will have a time where you are invited to come forward and drop a stone symbolizing your joy or concern that you're having right now. Perhaps if you have one that you'd like to share, we invite you to fill out one of the yellow cards you will find in the seat backs in front of you. Now, for those of you in the front row, you can just reach behind you and get one of those. Yes. There's a place to indicate on this card if you want it shared or not shared with the congregation. However, Facebook, if you fill out your joys or concern in the comment, you will need to know that it is public no matter what. If you have a need for hearing assistance, our AV Tech David can help you with that. And children are always 100% welcome in our service. And there's a staff nursery downstairs if you prefer. Please remember to silence your cell phones as we enter into our service. Now, dear ones, I'm excited. I'm so thrilled to welcome Reverend Jim Parrish into our pulpit today. Reverend Jim served as minister of UUFF from 2014 until his retirement in 2021. He and his spouse, Teresa, love Fayetteville so much that they made it their home after they retired and continue to participate in the interesting fabric of Northwest Arkansas's political, ecological, and social justice. One of the many, many things that I am proud of UUF for is the fact that when the world shut down in March of 2020 for the COVID-19 pandemic, UUFF never missed a Sunday. Behind the scenes, it may not have been completely seamless, but public-facing, it was a seamless transition from in-person to online services. And I have heard over and over and over how important that was to people, that connection those online services were during those 2 years. And Rev Jim was at the helm during that time. Epic, epic. I know you'll help me welcome him, but before we do that, we're going to have a chalice lighting. And Marty will do that for us.
Good morning. Please join me as we light the chalice. Love is the spirit of this community, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and truth, and to help one another, thus doing covenant together.
Please help me welcome Reverend Jim Parrish.
Thank you so much. It is great and a little bit of anxiety to be here. Our opening words. It's interesting times, isn't it? These are the words of Reverend Theodore Parker, Unitarian minister, transcendentalist, abolitionist, from a sermon in 1853. And I've adapted a little bit because words back there were kind of hard to follow sometimes. Look at the facts of the world. You see a continual and progressive triumph of the right and good. I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches just a little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can only divine it by conscience. But from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. He continues. This is because things refuse to be mismanaged long. Jefferson trembled when he thought of slavery and remembered that God is just. Ere long, all America will tremble. These were his words. And not long after this sermon by this Unitarian minister, America trembled mightily in a bloody civil war to abolish slavery. His words and Unitarians and Universalists show up in our country's history. And it seems we are not done with interesting times, and we need to show up.
Please, you do it. Please rise in
As
body
you are
or
able.
spirit as you are able for this morning's opening hymn, Morning Has Broken.
Number 38. Here we go. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain to fall, tumbling from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden's away. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
In religious community, we share our joys and our triumphs, our sorrows and our broken places, and meaningful moments in our lives. Because love is what connects us, and love is made up of many different feelings and events. In this circle of care, we make space for the complexity of life, the myriad experiences that bless and break our hearts. The truth of human experience dictates that on any given day, we each come to the table with hearts in different places. We love through interaction, and it's in our interactions that we come to know the world and our place in it. Our interactions and our gathering is very important. When we gather, and when love is at the center of that gathering, and when the outcome of our gathering is joy and laughter, it is a fierce form of resistance. Fear and hate cannot thrive where joy and love are the norms. We Unitarian Universalists believe that it is in the gathering and in the brave task of sharing ourselves that creates and grows trust and connection. And this is how we come not only to marvel at, but to engage in the depth and movement of the spirit of life, of the human experience. of the interconnection of which we are but a tiny part. And so we must create the space. If you have filled out a yellow joys and concerns card, you may bring it up and give it to me and drop a stone in the bowl of water by Marty. And friends, if you don't want to turn in a joys or concerns card, you can simply drop a stone in the water. If you would, come up the center aisles and go back to your seats around the outside aisles. Zizi, Suj, will you offer us some music?
gonna grab that.
David, are there any joys and concerns on Facebook this morning? Marty, let's drop some stones for the sorrows that we may not be able to share out loud. Oh, we're so lucky to have you in our midst. Just. There's so many things that we could be dropping stones for in our world, in our state, in our town, in ourselves. So, Marty, let's drop maybe like a whole handful of stones for the joys and concerns that we're holding in our heart. And then one more handful for the joys and concerns that we might encounter until we're together again next week. Thank you very much. All right, let's take 60 whole seconds. And I want you to quiet your mind. Turn it off. Turn off the mind and let yourself rest. 60 seconds with me.
So Renee already today has used the word lucky several times, and I would like to reiterate that. We are lucky, all of us. We are lucky to be here together in this place at this time. Lucky that almost 70 years ago, and for the younger members, that was the last century, a group of people decided that a place like this was needed, was necessary, and was worth making a priority in their lives. They gathered their money and focused their efforts to bring it about. And we are lucky that since that time, still more people gathered their money and focused their efforts to continue what we have today. Many of those people are in this room right now. We are lucky that to join institutions like this one with like-minded people in order to multiply our efforts so that our values and principles and the things that matter to us most are spread out to others and live on far beyond the reach of each of us individually. Please support this fellowship with your time and with your money and with your energy and with an offering today that will sustain us and allow us to grow. Will the ushers please come forward?
Little points of light across the star map in my mind. An affirming flame so bright it's still right here before my eyes. Hearts that stayed connected over weary miles and time give more than enough for me. We're pretty good, a lot of us, at shining all night long. Even when we aren't feeling capable or strong. From far away you make me smile as easy as a song. Maybe this is all I need. But on these lonely days I wonder stars as well. Do you speak my name in happy stories, the ones you always tell? Am I that same affirming flame for you? Can you spot me in your sky when you need to? Can you see my firebird feathers shine through starlight? Stop right now. Star maps speak to sailors just the way you speak to me. It seems like any time we're face to face, there's more to see. Our hearts that stay connected are as brave as they can be. But on these lonely days, I wonder, am I in your map of stars as well? Do you speak my name in happy stories, the ones you always tell? Am I that same affirming flame for you? Can you spot me in your sky when you need to? Ooh, can you see my firebird feathers shine through starlight? Star bright, here we are now, still shining. Little points of light, trying to guide each other through the night. Starlight, star bright, I see you, my friends. Keep shining, keep shining, keep shining, keep shining.
I didn't really want to curse you. Interesting times, okay? Sorry. Good morning. I want to thank Reverend A for the invitation to speak with you today. Thought it was just a coffee date. I was kind of nattering on about history of UU, and suddenly she had a date book out, and here I am. I appreciate the opportunity to share a bit of UU history with you and hope it engenders some more questions and Google searches, since I could fill up a full hour or two or three with this history. This is brought down from a class, a 3-day class, an hour each, so it will go a little longer, but not too much. You'll be okay. We didn't have to order lunch. My fascination with religious history began in college in the early 80s with the reading of Elaine Pagel's book, The Gnostic Gospels. This book recounts the discovery of 52 unknown gospels of the Jewish sect known as Christianity. It was written about the same time as all the other gospels that we're familiar with in the so-called New Testament. I was suspicious. How did Christianity end up with the Bible as it did, and why? And what else was being kept from me and the rest of the world? Kind of a UU attitude, I suppose. We have a reputation for not being able to sing a new hymn very well because we're examining the words ahead to see if we agree with them. And it was in college I discovered UU, but I had a lot more things to do before I got back to examining Christianity, or for that matter, UU history, which turns out to be very much related. When I did go to UU Seminary, it was almost 30 years later. And one of my burning questions was, just what the heck is UU? What held it together? Where did it come from, and where was it going? What I found out in seminary was, Yeah, that was the question they were all asking. And those were the answers, too. Our history is who we are and where we're going. We keep showing up in history. And when we do, it's usually as an answer to oppressions, authoritarians of the time. We tend to be on the progressive and unbounded edge of culture, of politics, and especially of religion. Now, a quick aside, what I mean by religion is a definition I've gleaned from those years of wondering and research. You can take it or leave it, but this is me. Religion for me is how I, or we, live. It is the sense of propriety, the rules, the understanding of how I want to be in relationship with myself, my family, my community, my nation, my ecology, my universe. My universe and all its realities and its mysteries. It is how I want to conduct my life in the face of being born, having to live, and having to die. How I live, or in a religious community like this, how we live, how we take this life into the world, how we show up as you use. So the history of Unitarian Universalists and the other threads that are us but not explicitly named, because Unitarian Universalism is a long name. Do you have time to say, yes, I'm a Unitarian Universalist, progressive Protestant Christian, transcendentalist, feminist, humanist, queer, pagan, naturalist? I don't even have the acronym for that. And what did I forget there? So let's quickly go through some historical threads to how we got here today. So I need to remember to do this. The red button? Pardon? Okay. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, arrow, there we go. Yay. We are of Arianism and Origenism. But first, those two folks were introduced to us by the Emperor Constantine I of the fading Roman Empire in the 300s, Common Era, 4th century. I always get confused what a century and, all that stuff. But I'm not going to test you on dates. Constantine needed an army. And it seemed the Jewish cult of Christianity had plenty of untapped cannon, spear fodder. So he, being pagan, converted to Christianity and declared the religion wasn't illegal anymore. So please show up at your neighborhood recruiting station and join our new nationalized religious army. Constantine's problem was that much of Christianity followed Jesus' ideals of pacifism, diversity, care for the downtrodden, and anti-authoritarianism at the time. He had to fix that. Armies don't march on anti-authoritarianism. So he gathered a council of leading Christian bishops in Nicaea in 325 CE, 325, Council of Nicaea 325, if you want to talk, about 325, Council of Nicaea. He said, you guys figure out how to make this a state religion, which they did. They worked hard at it for centuries thereafter, assembling and approved versions of the Gospels, rejecting many, as we have seen, as too namby-pamby, and creating the Roman Catholic Church. Boom. Boom, there we go. So, at this first council, two of the leaders were Arian of Alexandria these pictures are really good, aren't they, for that time? Arian of Alexandria, a Unitarian whose followers espouse the unity of God and that Jesus was a creation of God, but not the same as. And Origen, also of Alexandria, I don't think they went to high school together, who espoused pacifism and universalism, that all people would be returned to God, because God is the biggest thing, right? And God isn't mad at you for anything, because we're just doing stupid stuff. But they were proto-you and yous. Now, the views of these two church fathers were counted as very important. Origen is especially counted as he was a genius. He was the father of the church. He did a lot of writings that they depended on until they did not, because they caught up with their being you and you. In the year 553, Origen's works was declared heresy and ordered burned, and Arian had already been turned out long before that. But here's the thing. The ideas and ideals they believed in, that they lived on, and we would show up again. So in the 16th century, 1500s, a lot of Unitarian things happened. Universalist as well, but the exciting parts involved a lot of violent repression and burning at the stake and such. And the Unitarians seemed to bring out the worst in the authoritarians. So let's go forward. This is Michael Servetus on the right, who, and you have a picture of him up here. I noticed. Good on you. UUs cautiously claim Servetus is one of our own. He thought of himself, though, as more of an anti-Trinitarian than as a Unitarian. He took advantage of the Protestant Reformation to read and critique the Bible and wrote a book called On the Errors of the Trinity. Now, hold on to this. We'll come back to it. Let's talk briefly about the Protestant Reformation. So this Reformation was brought on by Martin Luther of Lutheranism fame. Martin Luther took advantage of political cover in Germany so he could challenge the Roman Catholic Church's practices and created the Protestant Church in its wake. Yes, they were the protesters against authoritarianism of the Roman Catholic Church at the time. Good on them. But fortunately, they were rescued from freewheeling religious happydom by a guy named John Calvin. Let's go back to John Calvin. Booing is approved. You know, I was a humanist once, but it's caused me trouble to know that he was a humanist lawyer who saw an opportunity to create a state religion with Calvinist Protestantism. He institutionalized the church again. And he eventually caught and burned Servetus at the stake with his book, which is another story. It's a long one, and you probably would like it, but Servetus was a genius, but he was a bit too smart for his own good. Fortunately for us, he had already published his treatise on the error of the Trinity, where he destroys the notion that the Bible supports the idea of the Trinity, that now even Calvinists had to believe because the Roman Catholic Church is still the most powerful dog in the state. But his book emboldens a bunch of free thinkers in Poland, Hungary, and Transylvania to branch out into Arianism, remember, Arian, and Unitarianism, and thoughts of religious and personal freedom. We show up again. History during this time is a jumble of Polish brethren, Hungarian Unitarianism or Socinianism, and a Transylvanian king. But let's focus on Francis David, pictured here in a dramatic pose. This is how I always did a sermon, right? David was the court preacher for King Sigismund I, and he was an Arianist or Unitarian. And he converted the king. It just made sense. The king couldn't. They had a big debate on what made sense, and this made sense. He converted the king, who helped put forth a declaration called the Edict of Torda in 1568. It's the first known edict of religious tolerance in history. The edict said that communities, churches, were able to freely elect their ministers. They did not have to be church or state approved. Of course, these churches, these ministers still had to be Catholic or Protestant, but they could be Unitarian Protestant, which was a big thing. They still couldn't be Jewish or Muslim or, any of these other things, but it was a move in the right direction. In the Protestant realm, electing an anti-Trinitarian was a big deal. This time of freedom of thought and choice was important because of social media. The Unitarian printing press of Rakow, Poland, put out treatises and pamphlets on this freedom like crazy until they were burned to the ground by the Roman Catholic Church in 1660. But it was too late by then. The ideas of religious freedom and choice were spreading throughout Europe, especially in the Netherlands, where intellectual arts, literature made it a hotbed of ideas. They were the smarty pants of Europe. Now, England was really pretty tired of the Netherlands. They were having English preachers and intellectuals starting to spout Unitarian and Universalist ideas, and the English were having none of it. They had their own problems maintaining a state religion and the Roman Catholic Church pressing on them all the time. So Universalists like John Murray and the Unitarian scientist and minister Joseph Priestley were run out of England, basically, and sent off to the colonies, where they couldn't cause any trouble, or hopefully they'd die of a nasty disease. So we finally show up on this continent. John Murray's mythologically storied arrival in 1770 begins our Universalist thread. Joseph Priestley founded the first Unitarian church in Philadelphia in 1796. And the word Unitarian, this was still an offensive label. But it moved from being an insulting term to naming our mainstream churchgoers with Reverend William Ellery Channing's sermon on Unitarian Christianity in 1819. That's worth reading. And from there, the names of Unitarians and Universalists in United States history becomes impossible to channel. We don't have time. We'll go through as quickly as we can. But, like I said, we haven't ordered lunch, so we'll try to get it as close as we can. From there, the names just continue. We show up big time. Our principles, our values, our beliefs, our openness to new revelations in religious being continue to change how we want to live. We became abolitionists like Theodore Parker, Julia Ward Howe, Thomas Wentworth Higginson. We became suffragists like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Olympia Brown, Mary Livermore. We became reformers like Clara Barton, Benjamin Rush, and Dorothea Dix. We became poets and educators like Emily Dickinson, Louisa May Alcott, May Sarton, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Henry David Thoreau. Our ideas permeated our culture, mostly for the better. We were and are not perfect. But where we've failed, we just keep trying we just keep trying to get it better. And where we failed has to be saved and talked about if we're going to get through this. Again, we kept showing up. And when the world was engaged in conflict, we became heroes. World War II, we became rescuers. The Unitarian Service Committee was formed in 1941 by the Reverend Charles Joy. And the USC, there's many versions of that through our history. This one formed in 1941 by Reverend Joy and was joined by Martha and Reverend Whitzel Sharp. They saved many in Europe from Nazi violence. The Sharps were honored as righteous among nations by the Holocaust Remembrance Authority, Yad Vashem, and publicized in a documentary, The Sharps War. The DVD is in the library, just down the street. All our scriptures are in that library. And you have a good one here too. I browsed it the other day. You guys are doing all right. And we understand from them to now that ethnic cleansing is not a thing of the past. It's still with us. In the 60s, we became civil rights activists again. Many ministers and lay UUs showed up for Martin Luther King Jr.'s call to Selma, and we worked for the civil rights movement thereafter. Two martyrs of the Selma March are Reverend James Reeb and Viola Luzzo, who were killed by the KKK at Selma. Their deaths moved the country and our government to pass the Civil Rights Act. Sadly, Jimmy Lee Johnson, pictured here, was killed defending his mother from police violence and brutality after the first attempt to cross the Selma Bridge. His death didn't count. And sadly, this hasn't changed, even today. And this is where we have to show up again. This is why Black History Month is so important. We have to remember the white history that overshadows all of this. We still have lessons to learn about ourselves. And one of them was about patriarchy. We became feminists in the 70s and 80s and listened to our feminine side to begin to break down our patriarchal tendencies. And this is still an ongoing struggle. Because of women like Lucille Shuck Longview, who pushed Unitarian Universalism to change, we took out sexist and patriarchal lyrics in hymns and liturgy and created curriculums like Cakes for the Queen of Heaven and Rise Up and Call Her Name. UU undertook the years-long process of updating our principles to describe how our history had changed us and how we wanted to live in equality and equity. The new principal bylaws were voted in 1985, were a departure from the past World War II principles. And they described our values and our sources and provided a framework for new ways for us to show up, to show how we wanted to live. Now remember, our principles are not scripture or a test of faith, but a reflection of our core values. And they are kept open to change as our experience changes us. And because of our experience of feminism, we showed up in history again. We became advocates and a home for LGBTQ community, creating welcoming congregations, advocating and participating in marriage equality. Julie and Hillary were one of a couple of seven UUs that sued for marriage rights in Massachusetts, opening the way for the national rights. Our ministers are over 50% women today, and many of us are from the queer community. We understand that sexuality and gender are a deeply important part of just being human, just being who we are. So we, with the UCC, created AYS, About Your Sexuality, in 1970, and Our Whole Lives, or OWL, in 2020. And that continues. This sexuality and relationship curriculum is challenged by conservatism today. We know it is part of the right way, the way we want to live, and we will show up for it. We are advocates for our environment and ecology. It's part of our nature ever since Henry David Thoreau and his essay on Walden Pond. Shown here, 50 UU ministers and our UUA president were part of 500 clergy who went to Standing Rock to defend indigenous water rights. Reverend Morales was one of the few religious leaders to participate in the ritual burning of the doctrine of discovery at the sacred fire. You just don't approach the sacred fire without permission. We had permission because we, as UU, had renounced the legitimacy of that doctrine years before. Ecology and indigenous rights, because there's always intersections in this work. Intersections with whatever people have to struggle with, to live, to thrive, to be themselves. We are advocates for the economically and physically disabled, taking on the class warfare issues that plague our nation from its very beginning and still today. Our history shows us to be almost always on the edge of religion, exploring how we want to live beyond scripture or clerical walls, beyond political and cultural boundaries. We are the people who explore the boundaries of how we want to be in relationship to others and the world around us, how we should show up. So my last slide is about how we're showing up today. And I know we're showing up because I stood with UUs out on the street just last week. I know we're showing up. This is our present UUA president, Reverend Dr. Sophia Benecourt, and my colleague and friend, Reverend Ashley Horan. And they are showing up in Minneapolis with so many more of us. Ashley's been a UU social justice warrior most of her life. And she and many, many other UUs have joined forces with many other faith and secular organizations to defend the worth and dignity and lives of immigrants and citizens in Minneapolis and beyond. Ashley lives just blocks away from where Renee Good and Alex Petty were killed, and has been on the streets and in meeting houses coordinating the defense of our democracy in this beleaguered city. They and we are showing up. We showed up in Transylvania. We showed up in abolition. We showed up in the Civil War. We showed up in civil rights. We showed up in women's rights. We showed up in LGBTQ rights. We showed up in the Poor People's Campaign. We showed up at Standing Rock. And we are showing up for immigrants, for democracy in Portland, in Minneapolis, in D.C., in Little Rock, and in Northwest Arkansas. So what is Unitarian Universalism? It is our history of showing up. Showing up to fight for how we want to live, how we want to share that life. We want to live with justice for all, not just for the powerful. We want to live with equity for every person, no matter their circumstance. We want to be free to become who we are, not to be bound by scripture or unjust laws. We want generosity to flourish and end the hoarding and wasting of resources. We want to honor and promote the interdependent web of life. And most of all, we want love to be at the center of the world, the whole world. Love that is creative and strong and resilient in the face of evil, because only love can make how we want to live come true. Only love will move the arc of the universe ever so slowly towards justice. And I know we'll show up with our hands and our hearts and voices to make it so. Shall we go make some more UU history?
Yes.
So may it be.
I think we are going to let the closing hymn go today. Marty, will you please extinguish our chalice? Thank you, Rev Jim. That was epic.
Please join me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
At 12:30 today, Web of Life will meet right here. And on Monday, February 16th from 6 to 8, there's going to be a community event held here to take action. Because we show up. And we're going to share the plate with the NAACP of Northwest Arkansas on February 22nd.
That's my birthday. That's all I want for my birthday.
There's gonna be a Being UU class if you'd like to become a member. It's a great class. It's a really fun class. March 22nd. And the last announcement is next Sunday there's gonna be chocolate communion. And that's our announcements. That's all of our announcements. But guess what? You can find more announcements in your email. In your email. In your email. Thank you. Thank you.
It says closing words. I have no closing words.
Wait a minute. Wait.
That was just announcements. Wait, Jim.
The closing words, which I was not prepared for until I saw that song earlier. Look at each other. Look at each other and see yourself shining and showing up. I celebrate you. Thank you for letting me be with you today. And hugs. Go forth and show up.
Just around the corner, nobody knows. Just around the corner, nobody knows. Just around the corner, nobody knows. Just around the corner, nobody knows.
one's trust your intuition. You never know what will come. If you believe in divination, follow the signs straight away home. By the neck upon the ground, oil the winter winding down, and walk your path with both eyes open. Witches, trust your intuition. You never know what will come. If you believe in divination, follow the signs straight away home. For the milk upon the ground, hail the winter winding down, and walk your path with both eyes open. Walk your path with both eyes open. Blessings around and future and past, on every little spell you cast. Blessings around and future and past, on every little spell you cast. Pour the milk upon the ground, hail the winter winding down. Pour the milk upon the ground, hail the winter. Nobody knows, just around the corner. Nobody knows, just around the corner. Nobody knows.